Welcome back, fellas. Three the hallway. Great to see you guys. And anyone that's watching, happy that you're here. I am Tariq Rashad, here with Rob. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Listen, man, you can call me Ice Cold Hunter. Not Ice Cold.
You say what? Man, you heard me. Come again, say what?
So Rob's on the train of jumping on bandwagons now, or is it just the Atlanta thing? John, what you going by today?
I'm scratching my head, John, because what?
Hold on. I know you're not talking. It's something that you do all the time. Your team out the playoffs. Now you go and jump on another team that you like and ride with them like you've been a fan forever. Golden State. Oh, I'm making this up. Rob, don't start. This is why I get to play neutral, because I don't pick a team. I pick players. So once my players is out, I just want to see good basketball. You guys can call that a cowardly way out. Whatever you want. It's three the hard way. We're gonna come to you guys with some basketball and talk, sports debate. We're gonna talk about the NBA finals. We're gonna talk about draft class. We had a really good conversation about draft class off the air, so we wanted to bring it to the air. Best draft class of all time. But we're gonna start with the NBA coaching carousel. So while the NBA finals is going on, a lot of teams that are no longer, while the NBA conference finals are going on, a lot of teams, only 4 teams left, 26 teams, trying to figure out what they want to do for next year, how they want to set themselves up for next year. A lot of coaching changes, not as many as in the past or even last year after the bubble, but some really significant coaching changes to some playoff teams. And Rick Carlisle is out of Dallas. He's in Indiana now. Chauncey Billups got a job in Portland. Jason Kidd replaced Rick Carlisle in Dallas. So there's a lot going on. The Brooklyn's assistant coach, Ime Udoka, stepped into Boston's head coaching position. So again, that's 4 playoff teams that I just mentioned. All 4 playoff, 3 playoff, 1 play-in team, all with new coaches. So how do you guys take this? Is there anyone that really intrigues you? Anyone that interests you? Anyone that's going to put their team over the top? What's your take so far?
I think all these changes were much needed, or were needed, especially Indiana. They obviously didn't get along with their coach, especially towards the end of the season. They started spiraling. Rick Carlisle going back to Indiana, I think that's a good move for him. He's been there before. He was there when Reggie Miller and them went to the finals. So like that's a good thing. Ime Udoka is a great move as well for the Celtics. They said they wanted a black head coach. What better candidate than Udoka, who's been with multiple organizations, from the Spurs to Brooklyn and now to the Celtics. It's like he only goes with winners, right? So and then he has Brad Stevens following right underneath him as well. I mean, on top of him, supervising him, helping him not make decisions, but helping with personnel. But for me, the biggest move of all of it was the Jason Kidd move. And not more so because Jason Kidd was hired there. I definitely want to give Jason Kidd his props when props is due. I always felt like he deserved another shot. I felt like he was ousted out too early in Milwaukee. That was just my personal opinion. But he's coached with the Lakers and won the championship. So he has that under his pedigree now. So he has the championship belt under his pedigree. He's dealt with different players and learned probably from a lot under those coaching trees, not being number one guy. And I'm excited for him. However, it speaks to me more volumes of the, I want to say, fire sale of people leaving the Mavs from longstanding tenure, like a Donnie Nelson and a Hall of Fame coach and Rick Carlisle. What is causing them to leave? And I feel like there's more to it. I think it's Luka Doncic. I think it's Luka Doncic, and I said it before. Like, star players run the league. I think that Luka he wasn't happy with the way what they was doing over there. So, now you got the 2011 Mavericks team over there, pretty much, in the coaching staff. Dirk is going to be there. Jason Terry is going to be there. J.K. is going to be there, and J.J. Barea. So this season for me, I think that Jason Kidd can put them over the top, but it's it's really up to Luka how he's going to take criticism and take coaching and step his leadership game up. That's more or less.
I'll jump in. To me, ultimately, the most interesting coaching change is Rick Carlisle going to Indiana, and I think it's very important to note that Rick Carlisle stepped down. And to me, I don't think it was a Doc Rivers situation where the pitchforks were out and Rick Carlisle was going to get fired, so he steps down before he gets fired. And as you've seen, Indiana was chopping at the bit. They grabbed him as soon as they possibly can. But I think it speaks to Dallas and where they stand as an organization, as a basketball team. So historically, over the last 20 years, Dallas is the second winningest team in the NBA. They've made 16 of the last 20 playoffs. However, they've only won 13 playoff series. And I don't need to remind you to, one of those series, they went all the way to the finals and lost. So that's 3 wins. And in 2009 against the Miami Heat, they won the championship. So that's 4 wins, 4 series. So that's 7 series is within 2 years. So if you take that out the mix, they've made the playoffs 14 times and have 6 playoff wins.
Is that bad? It's not good.
I never hear anything bad coming out of Dallas. And it's brought me to the thought that Dallas is okay with being good, having a superstar to fill seats, and making it to the playoffs. I don't think Rick Carlisle was okay with that. Rick Carlisle, like you said, coached, in my opinion, an underdog, not the best team in the Eastern Conference, Reggie Miller's Pacers, to the championship. He also coached that Mavericks team to the championship. And in my opinion, they weren't the best team coming out of the West that year when they beat Miami. He's a winner. And at some point, you have to look at the Mavericks and say, do they just want to be good? Like I talk about my Ravens, football, cross-sports reference, or do they want to be great? I think the Mavericks are content with being good as long as they have a superstar. If they can get that superstar 1 chip, fine. But sometimes it means rebuilding. Sometimes it means trading away a huge piece to make it all work. And I don't think the Mavericks are willing to do that. And for that, I think people like Rick Carlisle will jump ship. And I think people like Jason Kidd is great for the new spot, for the empty job slot. But I'm really wondering if the Mavericks are okay with just being good, one of the better half teams, or do they actually want to step into that championship realm of winning 4, 5, 6 championships? They only have 2, and we remember them both. Outside of that, the Mavericks have been pretty okay.
I just want to say, I see what you're doing, John. I see what you're doing early.
Think you're slick, gonna come over here and ask me for some money.
You trying to set the narrative that Luka Doncic can't lead, and he's the reason why all these people in Dallas are leaving, and he's not as good as the other top 5 players in the NBA that you would call. So I'm gonna just say that. But I will say I do think it was just time for a change. You look at cross-sports reference for me, Andy Reid in Philadelphia. You know, they went to so many NFC championship games and they went to the Super Bowl. And, you know, like sometimes like you just need a new voice in that locker room to get you over the top. And I think Rick Carlisle and Donnie Nelson, they kind of ran their course. Like, yeah, they did have an amazing run in Dallas, but like at the end of the day, Phil Jackson didn't coach the Lakers forever. Like, he didn't coach the Bulls forever. I'm not saying they were the right moves, but like you need new changes. And I also think that's what happened with Danny Ainge in Boston. You know, he had another good string of successes of moves that he made as a general manager. But I think ultimately in Dallas, it was just it's time for a new voice. My biggest surprise, I'm partial to my foreigners. I find myself falling on the
foreigners.
Yeah, I'm partial to foreigners. I like foreign players. I like Dirks. I like Lukas. I like
foreign?
Huh?
You mean you're biased towards foreign players?
That's what I'm saying. But anyways, I think that Rick Carlisle going to Indiana is a huge upgrade over Nate Bajorkin, whatever his name is, like we saw throughout the season, there was huge backlash. You had players telling him to sit down in the middle of the course of a game. They just weren't bought in, and that's another situation where you need a new voice. And I think that Rick Carlisle is one of those, the sum of the parts is greater than the whole type of coaches. And I like the pieces that Indiana has. So I think Indiana will definitely be a force to be reckoned with in the East barring injury. And what I'm interested to see is who's going to take that spot in New Orleans, because Stan Van Gundy is no longer there, and that's another team that has a bunch of solid pieces that, you know, people would love to coach them. Like, who would love to coach Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram as your core?
Agreed. Quick note on Chauncey Billups in Portland. I think that's a smoke move. I think it's a black smoke, all pun intended. They try and do whatever they can to keep Dame, but the writing might be on the wall there, believe it or not. And if Dame left and joined the superstar, I don't think anybody would judge him. Let's move on. Who we got? Draft class, right? Best draft class. DeAndre Ayton would have been in quotes. We don't do quotes that much anymore. But anyway, DeAndre Ayton said he thinks that his 2018 draft class is the best of all time. And that had us wondering, is it? I mean, we spoke draft on this show before. So what do you guys have? Is the 2018 draft, where does it rank all time if it's not the best draft of all time? And what is your best draft class of all time?
Too early to say. It's too early to say if they're their best all the time. Right now, as it stands, they are looking pretty good. You have all-stars, multiple all-stars in that draft class. But 1996 draft class for me does it. You got Kobe, you got Ray Allen, you got Marcus Camby, you have Allen Iverson, you got Stephon Marbury, you got Peja Stojakovic, Derek Fisher, Lamar Odom.
Jermaine O'Neal.
Not Lamar Odom, Jermaine O'Neal. That draft class is elite. You got 3 MVPs and Steve Nash. You got 3 MVPs in that draft class. You have a defensive player of the year multiple times. You have the 3-point king for right now. Steph Curry's going to pass him soon. But that draft class has stars, is deep, legends, icons. 96 draft class.
For once, I found myself agreeing with John on this podcast. I too agree that the 96 draft class is, in my opinion, the best draft class. Aside from what John said, like the top 5 players are solid. The top 5 picks, you got definitely all-stars. You got Camby, you got Iverson, you got Marbury, you got Allen. Just having an all-star is that. And then to mention that, like, you know, you go to the depth and you got people that started on championships like Kerry Kittles. You got people like Peja, who's an intricate part of Sacramento when they had their run. He even has a championship in Dallas. Like Jermaine O'Neal is another player. So it's like Algauskas was an all-star. Like, damn. That draft class is kind of deep to me, dog. So I think that the draft class that Ayton was in has a potential to be really solid, but they're just not top heavy enough for me.
I think 96. I think this is a conversation between 96, 2003, and I think 2018 and potentially 2017. A little bit less. In my running, they would be the 4th on that Mount Rushmore of draft classes that I can remember. I can't really remember 96, but I remember everybody playing from 96 and what they did in the league, you know, after that. But in 96, I got 9 players that led their teams, and you've named all of them, if not most of them. But then the draft class kind of, I mean, you have your Derek Fishers, where there's guys that weren't necessarily the leader on their team, but intricate parts. Point forward got Fish, huge big shot make contributor to the Lakers' success and even some of Utah's success, even though they didn't win anything. But after that, it kind of bottoms out. And then 2003, that's the same thing. It's really top heavy. You got guys that are going to run the league. Same thing with 96. You have guys that are going to run the league for a generation. And then in 2003, you have that next wave of guys who are going to run the league for a generation with Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, Chris Bosh and D Wade. But then that also falls off, and there's not too many great. There's a few role players in that draft class, but the 2018 draft class, we may have some guys that are going to run the league. I mean, I talked about the 9 guys in 1996 that were the leaders on their team. These guys are 3 years in, and like you said, John, it is too early to proclaim them the best draft class. But depth-wise, off the rip, their first rounders, Trae Young, leading his team deep into the playoffs. DeAndre Ayton, intricate part, probably the best consistent player on his team throughout these playoffs, but not the best player on his team. Luka Doncic, we just had a segment about him. Shai was one of the best. Shai was one of the biggest stories. Gilgeous-Alexander was one of the biggest stories last year with OKC, and he got hurt this year. The Bridges. Michael Porter stepped into that number 2 role, getting 35 a game in the playoffs last year, and then also having some great. So Colin Sexton was the leader of a bad, but still the leader of Cleveland when he first came out, and he did pretty good. So it's top heavy. Not as top heavy as 96, but we could be looking at Trae Young and Luka Doncic and maybe even Michael Porter and DeAndre Ayton being the best big man in his generation or in his time. So we could be looking at guys that are running their teams. And then that second round, you got Graham, you got Brunson, you got Bruce Brown, you got Gary Trent, you got a bunch of guys, Shake Milton. You have guys that 20, I would say up to 21 guys of legit role players. Kevin Huerter. I like that draft class. I still wouldn't put it over 96, but I'm very interested in what it can be, say 5 years from now, because we could be talking about some champions. That's what's gonna make the difference. Can we add some champions to that 2018 list? But I think that is all the time we have for the NBA right now. All right, y'all. We'll see y'all back on Other End for Football.